Hi, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my craft room. I'm so excited today. I have some brand new products from Simon Hurley Create. I was so honored to be asked by Simon to use some of his newer products released today from Ranger. So thank you to Simon and Ranger for sending me these adorable products to play with and show you some ideas to use these stamp sets. That first stamp set is called Happy Fall. This one is called Mythical Monsters, and this awesome background stamp is called the Plaid Builder, and it's peel apart. So each of these different stripes come apart, so you can use them in all kinds of ways. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with creating a background. I put a piece of cardstock inside of my Misty using one of my scrapbook.com Clearly Amazing mats, and I'm just going to test out this new background stamp. So I'm starting with one of my strips and I'm using my Misty to help me put it in place. Now I could have made my stripes a little straighter, but that's okay. I am just having fun and creating with these great rubber stamps. I can't believe how wonderful these stamps are. And I'm even using some of my new Simon Create ink pads. So this is Overzealous. It's a really fun kind of lime green. And then I'm going to peel off my next stripe and I'm going to line it up with the one I just inked. And I'll peel that off and set it aside, making sure to keep my stripes in order so I know how to put this back together. And the next color I'm using is Midnight Snack, which is such a beautiful deep blue color, like a nice navy. And then finally, I'm going to use the color Piggyback, which is a really soft pink. And I think these three colors are so pretty together. I actually got these as a prize from scrapbook.com. So thank you, scrapbook.com, for these ink pads. I was so excited to get them so I could use them with these new products. And I'm going to keep going through all of the stripes and continue down my little piece of cardstock here. I was watching TV at the same time and didn't realize that I accidentally went out of color order, but you can't tell, and it's still fun and colorful, and that's all that matters. So I'm going to set this aside and I will clean up my stamps and put my stripes back in order. And I grabbed some dies from my stash to cut out a vellum circle and a white banner that I will use to stamp my sentiment. But now I'm going to grab my Mythical Monsters stamp set and figure out which one I think would go really well with that pink, green, and pink color scheme, or pink, green, and blue color scheme. So I picked this really cute monster. I mean, they're all cute. I had a really hard time picking which one I wanted to do. And I'm stamping him in a black ink that is alcohol marker friendly onto some white alcohol marker friendly cardstock. And I'm grabbing my Colorista art markers. These are alcohol markers from Spectrum Noir, and I am just going to grab some different colors that I think match my stamped background, and I'm going to color in my cute little monster. So he's green with blue accents, a pink tummy, and pink horns. After I'm done applying kind of a base color, I go back with the exact same color and I'm just adding some shadows and details, especially with this green and then with the pink on his little tummy and horns. And then I will grab a white gel pen and just clean up any of the white spaces I accidentally colored over. And I will add some peach cheeks and then that white gel pen again to add in some highlight accents to my cute little monster. Once I'm all done coloring him in, I'm just going to fussy cut him out using some small scissors, rotating the paper around my scissors, and once I'm done cutting him out, I'm going to grab a self-healing mat and a little retractable razor, and I'm going to just cut out this space in between my monster's body and its tail, and that way I have kind of an even line completely around my image. You don't need to do this, of course, but I really wanted that even line all the way around the white spacing. So now I have my matching little monster. I did a vellum circle because I didn't want to hide my background. I was so excited for this background stamp and the beautiful colors. So I thought a vellum circle just kind of helped break some space in between my monster and my background, just to add a little bit of interest and without taking away from the background. So that's why I went with a vellum circle. Now I have my white tag and I picked out a sentiment from that same stamp set that says I'm wild about you, and I'm going to stamp this sentiment with the same midnight snack blue ink, and I stamped it twice to make sure I had a nice clean crisp sentiment. And then I'm going to adhere all of this together, but I knew I wanted to add in a background piece, so I decided to grab an A2 size piece of white cardstock and a domed foam blender from scrapbook.com. And then I'm grabbing that midnight snack ink again, and I'm just going to ink up the edges of this background because that's all we're going to see. So I'm just using a gloss mat and some magnets to help me just do that real quick. And as you can see, it layers behind perfectly. I did some jazz hands there because I am just loving these colors. This midnight snack, like I said, is a beautiful navy and it's my new favorite color. I've just decided. I'm going to grab my tape runner and I'm adhering some adhesive behind my stamped background, and I'm centering that to my blue inked edge background. And then I'm going to kind of approximately lay out where my images and my circle are going to go, so I can add some adhesive on my vellum circle that will be hidden by my little monster. So I'm laying everything out again, kind of approximate, and then pressing down so my vellum circle is attached to my card base. And now I'm going to grab some foam adhesive and I'm going to cover the back of my little monster, and I'm going to peel off the release paper and add him to the center of that vellum circle. I'm using some adhesive, some foam adhesive again behind my sentiment strip, and I will peel off that release paper, and it takes me a couple tries to get this onto the card how I want. I want its little feet to just hang over just a little bit over my banner, but there we go. We have our final card, but as I was looking at it, I knew it needed a little something else, so I don't know how to leave well enough alone. So I grabbed one of my pops of color and a soft pink that matched the Piggyback pink from Simon Hurley Crate. And that will finish off our fun little monster card. I know this is probably more geared towards a Halloween set, but I just had to play with the ink pads and create something that allowed me to use these 3 new ink pads. Okay, so jumping into our second card, I put the background back together on the acetate sheet that it comes with in the stamp set, and I'm using Distress Oxides in Spice Marmalade, Carved Pumpkin, and Crackling Campfire or no, I'm sorry, Ripe Persimmon to add in some orange hues onto my striped plaid background, and I sprayed on some water using my Distress sprayer. And I have a piece of white cardstock. This is Bristol smooth cardstock, and I'm just gonna press that onto my background stamp using a paper towel just to help me from getting ink everywhere because I always get my fingers inky. And there you can see how beautiful that background is. Now I did lose a little bit of the texture obviously because I sprayed water on it, but I can still see all the individual stripes, and I just think it looks so beautiful in these fall autumn colors. Now there is still a lot of ink on this rubber stamp, so I sprayed it with more water and grabbed a couple pieces of scrap paper. That first one I used was a piece of mixed media, and the second one was a piece of watercolor cardstock, and that way I have 2 more backgrounds with these beautiful colors and that striped plaid background. And I'll just save these for a future project. To help with the drying, I grabbed my heat gun and I'm just applying some warm air to speed up that drying process, but I'm going to use that original background I stamped first in the Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to stamp that adorable raccoon on top of the pumpkin from the Happy Fall stamp set. When I saw that raccoon, I just needed this stamp set. I think he's so cute. And I stamped him in a brown ink this time that is alcohol marker friendly. I grabbed my colorista markers again, and I'm coloring in my pumpkin and the leaves and the vine, and then I will color in my raccoon. But for the raccoon, I'm going to grab my Illustrator markers because I have some brown grays that I thought would be better for the raccoon coloring. But my pumpkin and my leaves are all colored with my colorista markers. Here I am again for the orange. I'm using the same color to add in some shadow and dimension. And the leaves, I use two different shades of green from the Natural Tones set. So my raccoon, I am using brown grays. I have brown gray 9, 6, 4, 2, and 1 to color in my raccoon. And I'm also going to grab my muted brown, which is MB1, and that's just to add some of the yellow that you kind of see in a raccoon's fur. They're not like straight gray, they have a little bit of yellowness to them, and so adding in that muted brown kind of added that yellow brown hue to my raccoon. Now, I accidentally slightly double stamped my poor little raccoon. I wanted to stamp again on top of my coloring. I just took that brave decision to darken up my lines again, and it was slightly off in my Misty, and I was really sad, but I did all that work and it's still darn cute, and you really can't tell unless you really stare at it that the lines are slightly off. I still think he looks adorable, so I went with it. I fussy cut him out. I cut out some of the extras in some of the white spaces using my retractable blade again, and I want to add a little bit more to the background since my raccoon is kind of brown. I wanted to add a little bit of brown to the background. So I'm grabbing Vintage Photo and my domed foam applicator for that particular ink, and I'm just lightly inking the edges of my background, and then I will actually later pull that ink back out to add some splatter. But before I do that, I jumped over to adding in my sentiments. So I grabbed that stamp set again, and I'm looking at all the different sentiments, trying to think what I want to do, and I decided that I'm going to do some embossing. So I want to use one of the bolder sentiments, so I went with the Happy Fall Y'all sentiment because it is a bolder font. Some of the sentiments are a little more bold and some are regular, which I think is a really great way to add more fun to your sentiments, especially when you use two sentiments at a time. One looks like it's more bold and kind of like, I don't want to say a title, but more prominent. And then the second one could be a non-bold, a regular font, and it's more like a sub sentiment. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, I just went with one and I stamped it in VersaFine Clear in Pinecone, which is a brown ink. And then I used my super fine embossing powder from Ranger in the color Copper. And I'm going to heat up that sentiment and melt that embossing powder down. And here is when I was like, you know what, I need some splatter. So I grabbed my magnetic glass mat again, squished a little ink on it, and sprayed some water. And I just grabbed a fine paintbrush and just did a little bit of splattering onto the background. I let it sit for a little bit of time, and then grabbed a paper towel and just kind of dabbed off the excess water. And I just thought it added a little bit more texture to the background. Just like my little monster, I'm gonna just add a bunch of foam adhesive behind my adorable raccoon on top of the pumpkin, and then I will pull off that release paper and center it above my sentiment on my background. And then I have a top folding A2 card base. I also put my other card front onto the same type of card base. And I was going to add some color in between my background and my card base, but I decided just to go with the white border. So I have scored and folded my background. I'm adding some foam adhesive behind my stamped background to add to my card base just for a little more dimension, and centered that right on. So here is a final look at this adorable Happy Fall Y'all card. And then I'm bringing back out my card front of my Mythical Monsters. I'm Wild About You. I'm waiting for my pops of color to dry to put it on a card base. But these are my two cards from the latest Simon Hurley Create release. I hope you enjoyed seeing some fun ways you can use these new products, and I hope you'll head over to Ranger and see what else has been released and have a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!